Welcome to our fourth video of our Stripe week, a whole week dedicated to integrating Stripe with Backfrap. Today we'll be seeing invoices. Invoices are statements of amounts owed by an user to you. So in order to charge a customer and send him an invoice, you have first to create that invoice. So here on my Stripe dashboard, if you go to payments, in here you'll find invoices, and I don't have any created yet. So let's create one by code. Here I have my Visual Studio, and we are going to also create an async function called create invoice. And in here we'll call Stripe method to create an invoice with a few parameters. So let's do that by typing let invoice equals await, because this is also an asynchronous call, stripe.invoices.create. And in this method we are going to pass a JSON object containing some information. There are other parameters that you can add, but today I'm adding these ones for example. So customer, and this will need a customer ID. Remember, we created customers on the first video, so let's go back to our dashboard, go to customers and choose a customer here. I'm going to copy this customer's ID, there you go, and paste it in there. Remember, you can always retrieve these values when you create the user, so you don't have to go to the dashboard to retrieve it. I'm doing like this so you can see it. Also, let's add a currency for our invoice, so currency, and this will be US dollars. You can also add a description to your invoice. So this is my first invoice. And last but not least, you can add a collect method that will tell Stripe how it should charge that invoice. So collection method, and then I'm going to do this as charge automatically. Now, if all this runs fine, we should see an invoice created for my custom user. So console log invoice. I'm going to save it and run node index.js. Now if we go back, I didn't call the function, so let's call it. So create invoice and run it once again, so node index.js. And there you go. If I go back to my dashboard, payments, invoices, you see I have an invoice attached to my user, but the amount is 0 because I don't have any items in that invoice yet. So if I open it, it's just an empty draft attached to my user. I have to add a few rows in here with the values that I'm charging for that invoice. We'll do that by adding some invoice items. So let me comment this out and let's create one invoice item. So let invoice item equals await stripe dot invoice items dot create, and this will once again have a JSON object with a few properties that we can set, and the first one I want to set is the customer, which is the same that I set for my invoice, so this will be all related. So this is my customer. I want to put an amount in a per line basis, so every single item inside your invoice should have its own value. So amount, let's put 2500, which means 25 US dollars. You also have to put the currency, USD, and you can add a description for that item. So description, my first item. Last but not least, we have to attach this item to that invoice. We do that by passing the invoice number that we retrieved from the creation of the invoice. So invoice and this will be a string. I can capture it from here. There you go. And if all this succeeds, we're going to console log the invoice item. Now, if we run this again, and if we go back to our dashboard and refresh our invoice, you see that I have my first item with a total of $25 in there, and you can keep appending lines on your invoice until you reach the full invoice value. You can always also update an invoice. So let me comment this out and uncomment the previous part so we can update it. So let's try the create method to update. And we're going to change some data in here. So I'm going to change the description. So suppose I entered my description wrong and I want to fix it. All I have to do is add, this is my first edited first invoice. So if I run this code once again, oops. Oh, I didn't pass the invoice that I'm trying to update. You have to pass the invoice that you're trying to update so it knows which one to update. So let's pass it as a parameter as well. It will be a string, and we have to pass in the invoice that I'm trying to update. So let's add it in there, save it, and run once again. Now there you go, it should put the edited in the first invoice. So back there, we're going to finally refresh it. And this is my description changed to this is my edited first invoice. And I can also delete an invoice. But we're not going to delete it yet because first we want to pay it. So let's go back to our code and we're going to change all these once again. The update method will become the pay method, and this only takes one argument, which is the invoice that I'm trying to pay, the ID of the invoice. So if I just run this, oh, it is I cannot charge this invoice yet because I don't have an active card. But if I had one, this method would succeed. This is how you pay an invoice. You just call the pay method with the invoice ID. And you can finally delete that invoice. All you have to do is to call the del method and with the ID of the invoice once again. And will also not allow me to delete because it only allows you to delete drafted invoices. So let's create a new one. So let me comment this part out. Go back to our create method. There you go. And we're going to add this as my second invoice. Run it. There you go, now I have my new ID and we're going to del it. So all I have to pass is the invoice ID, which is here. If I save it, and just for a second, let's go back to our dashboard and see that invoice created. There you go, I have a zero amount invoice created. The first one failed when I tried to pay it. So node index.js. Now it's deleted because that is a draft invoice. So if I go back there, you see it was like a draft. If I refresh this, now I have the first one that failed. So this is how you create and send invoices to your customers. So if you found this video helpful, please click the like button and consider subscribing to the channel so you can help us grow. Also share this link with a friend and they can learn something too. If you already subscribed, thank you for that. And if you have any questions, suggestions, or any implementation you'd like to see, please leave it on the comment section down below. We always answer all the questions. I hope you like this content and hope to see you on the next videos of this series this whole week. See you soon. Bye bye.